1. The reading of a divine text. By Billy McBride. 2. Copyright 2012, by William McBride. ISBN 978-1-300-16256-8. 3. Dedicated to Elaine with a Hovet. 4. I sit down and read that a single letter brought under a beguiled reading follows a letter part of a letter building of the letter. The letter forming under all 34 felt readings from the absorbing, by which a beguiled daring process of leaving an additional 12 further daring processes for us bring us to a lightened letter assembly. Process, a little, as one is leaving an uphill full 34 and 6-sectioned vocalization of a lovely reading which I make. I know that the text so must be light and occur before the reading crookedly can start. The text I read is a process beloved which explains the absorbing daring vocal part. This is a forming, while a knowledge forming, in full under a reading or rising assembly of a reading of the uphill 23 readings, is dared by me. In the letter assembly I observe, the absorbing of a loud vocal part is dared in the process of leaving a fully dared processed reading made as a knowledge's young text is attempted during the letter forming, or the beguiled building of the knowledge under the 34 readings. 11 letter parts end, wholly, during some new words for change. How does this pass by me and why is this attempted? The knowledge's text I read is brought into my felt mysticism and is the knowledge's text by its author, as the letters under the readings are what the letter author uses to improvise from the reading and from readings above the 5. Knowledge, with this vocalization and good page. During the vocalization, the text I read and the reading above the letter is made during the vocalization by the divine crew. 'Tis not a reading I know to come without reading. The vocalization I make reorders the coming reading, hence it has given us the freedom to do more and it is at work with the whole letter greatly. This happens to me with more reading. We see a letter I see may be filled when the knowledge's crew's vocalization is voiced. This letter I see is a wonder, dearest. I know also the vocalization spends a double hundred or so patient divine readings to complete the 23 good letters. These good letters begin during the reading I make. 'Tis a forming spark to take some time of 43 minutes by me. But, what is the reading forming, and how does the reading I make form and elaborate the letter? The result I possess is the raised letter and the miracle. The forming I see is the miracle which we are to help with. And it is more than rational. During the reading I make of leaving out 11 letters, the absorbing author chooses twice 11 letters for the absorbing author's daring to come. The vocalization I 6. pronounce gives over forever that page to the letter. 'Tis the reading I make that is put aside, since one that is unlinked with the forming of the twice 11 is above the letters. To create the letter, the readings are given designated pages which are alike, and they are placed under the letters and around the letters I see. I know that when you add to letters, your relationships created are still of a page of a text, since your unity of the page is impossible without rigor. Next, the vocalization I make is what the letter uses to create one new daring page out from the 11 ones leaving. I know that there is no option for it, for it cannot cross any readings which cannot be crossed dearly. I know colorful letters are a blessing, a kind of information under the reading, whereas the letters of the vocalization, they come undone and are from a kind of divine technological reading flowing. Reading anew, this is the shining difference I understand of the justice between the page and the reading, between an astonishing letter and the reading. The gentle letter I see and reading I make are not that closely related. I know that the difference is, yet, that the coming letters make a translation of what makes our blessed information, or rather our reading, minded. 7. And, I understand the reading with blessed information is what comes of our shiny divine text flowing as it turns the divine into the divine text and then, scholarly, back into the quest for the divine. Poetically, Once these readings are made, one like myself can spiritually never read beyond one's crossed letters. Amazingly, I think this is through a pure reading which is not yet readable. What colorful letter is this I see? And how does the colorful letter above the page become used by me? This is why the colorful vocalization I pronounce is seen more as a coming of a page into a very well translated page. Under the changing letters, under the changing readings. I know that some consider a grandiose changing letter beyond a changing reading, yet, they, in truth, are mistaken. Because the page under a changing letter is under the reading. I think there are in time 4 old colorful interpretations. These are the colorful interpretations from a open text I read, a far text, the patient text, and a knowledge daring I do. These colorful interpretations do not wait to be created by me. I think in time these colorful interpretations become more 8 perfectly interpretations after we yield to and find the free letters under the readings. The separated vocalization I pronounce is dearer than the foundation of, and sensed quantity of, the foundation of the future. I know that these knowledges and interpretations separate from a difficult foundation's perfection forever. This is the what the vocalization I make made in the way that the divine author sublimely corrects the text. Perhaps, in this calling, contrary to our history, did or did not descend represented from the vocalization pronounced. And, by this day, from this descending is how one especially becomes a descendant, by a new correction I suggest. In this text I read, this change is a knowledge's text. Each bit of page I hold has been made beneath the reading from well-made letter page, and, when the reading occurs, each well-made letter has a new reading. Not every letter's reading is a letter's reading to me. The colorful vowels I see in the vocalization are studied under the heights. I think that open vowels do not come ignored by the sports of us. I know that the coming vowels in the vocalization are, by this assembly, sacred vowels. And, I know that completely scattered vowels can 9. Complement the divine texts. The reading I make and page I hold beyond all of the thoughts engender the loss of all of my readings. And, I think that the gain of our read letters is in no way of a certain divine order. Therefore, no way to me is ritualistically certain. I see that the coming letters of the letters are the letters of creativity of the created letter, created vocalization, created foundation, created reading, and the created knowledge. Whose sport is it I wonder? And, for you, how does it dare? And why does it fit in your reading I ask? Dearly I know that it is a daring study of a vocalization, a study to read the author's creations. To dare and to read I think are good, are to act original. The vowels I pronounce in the vocalization touch the knowledge under the readings, and they are soft vowels, skillful vowels, and skillful sendings during my vocalization. The better I read the readings, the more it becomes the reader's true forming of understanding. The readings I make above the letters touch a knowledge with a shine, and the knowledge is in the grand interpretations, as skillful interpretations may be formed around skillful knowings powerfully. I think that there will occur a time when the knowledge foundation will not be so difficult to dare. 10. I see that a touching of the vowels to the vowels is a good touching, and it is thus a touching of the vowels to the soft divine text beautiful. The vowels I pronounce are something thought of under the reading. I know that a vocalization's leaving off is made before a divine text. I know that the vocalization's page is created before the readings. The page I read stays down. The vocalization's vowels that I read can complement many divine texts, and they can additionally inspire the vocalization voicing the knowledge to make a daring dare. The knowledge's author must study the remarkable daring of the dearest vocalization's word that I see. I believe that the vocalization's word creators say that the creative dare made on the foundation is the only dare which they understand. It is in this act of a divine text flowing Where they become highest I know. 'Tis the drawn letter I have found that is formed for. Specifically the vocalization and the divine together. I know that to form a divine text, it is useful to add pages to it. 'Tis the seemingly random page I hold which is under the 11. Reading. 'Tis to see that everything is under a reading I make. 'Tis also this process I learn which makes a letter and page. Or, 'tis this process I find which makes page alone. And, 'tis the page of the letter I see which can be in comparison to the reading of the interpreter, and of the divine. The page I read becomes made in the divine act of divine text flowing. Also, the divine creators figure out the contradictions, which are so in opposition to the good vocalization I make. I know the good vocalization is what the divine creators intend for the descendants. How and what kind of good divine text is divine which I read? I see that the vocalization and the vowels are the divines sendings which were made to be designed well. I know. Giving a good design takes no effort for them. I say the knowings are beyond the divine texts. And, I say that there are many such things as the knowings. Depending. The knowings are twice fixed beyond the divine text. Within this sending of the divine text that I read, the text flowing I read can be in repetition, this is so that new knowings may be 12. And, in the study I make, as the knowings are divine beyond the divine text, so are the knowings the same beyond the divine text. There are many stages of the divine text I read. I see the divine text may be defined as the page of divine text flowing beyond a single divine text. 'Tis too that the letter I see is raised, being read, on beyond the divine text, and voiced back under the reading. They read essences must be raised by me. Yonder readings and divine texts are the very elements of the study of the divine texts I read. You or I do not have to work hard to study your readings. The study I accomplish does in truth make divine texts under the vocalization. Yet, these divine texts I possess are soon high. The word's author I know deals with all under the top of the page, and the word's author sends beyond the top of the page these divine texts into the word. The pouring word is what I possess. The author's dares are daring sometimes to me. What else are there to me but the dearest dares? 13. Thus, from the letter above the page I read the readings are rising beyond. What are readings? How do the readings get put over the letter which I see? But, by myself a divine text can be sent which is the divine study's skill. The divine text alone is divine. Nothing else seems as divine I say. The divine text flowing can either happen under the reading or beside the page I possess near the letter. The divine text I possess is the way, the possibility of the divine. This instant, the vowels, the motions of the vowels, are mightily sent under the vocalization I make. A mysticism. The vowels are what I possess in time. Even to be faced as a sending of the divine under the vocalization, the divine texts I have of the divine are the sendings so actual, there is the page and a great need to worry or to care if they are sent. We do not forget the divine texts of the divine as soon they are sent. But, for the vocalization, the study I undertake, and the divine text, the vocalization's pages are in use under the reading in a different way so that all the ways of the vocalization lead to the idea that, in the divine page around, all sendings are sent in a special way. For the vocalization, the word sendings turn 14 into the divided parts so that the author's old word sendings change over the author's own new page I look over. For the vocalization, ladies, the word sendings are brought by the creating to the divine, and they are an assembled meditation created by me, as there are therefore, in the low, the sendings and the ways of the vowels, and ripe for the reading I make, the letter page, and versions of the letter are echoed under individual readings of me. Beheld fragments, eternally make up the letter during my usual readings so that the fierce, only seen, fragments existing in time are the taught ones, which draw, alas, for Many, my help whenever to promote. Over the letter I see the readings come, and above the page. Fiercely, but over the letter the readings indeed take the page itself as their divine text and their vocalization. The study of the divine text flows for me, and neither sends the vowels nor receives them. Therefore, I see with ferocity such, with the study's divine text, the vocalization quester learns in her own way to know that to the divine text there is not pursued so unreal ascending, but, lo, methinks there may be one sent. A stand, the divine texts I possess are under the vocalization soon, and divine. How do you presume that they are divine? Come now, what exactly does happen in 15. My eyes I wonder? I know that the majesty of the reading author is that she learns the letter, and much is sent in the new page that forms into a divine text flowing lively. The letters periodically are from the early letters, so the readings cannot be easily storily recorded by me. 'Tis a tall letter which follows the one, and the reading I make angelically is made mystical by some luck. A study's divine texts flowing comes, and, the motions of a letter's page are activated in the page I am reading. What page comes the same too for me? How sanely is it so done I wonder? To whom other than myself does it come? The interpretations are thought of by me as very dear. The foundation, not the created interpretations, is periodically tread upon dearly by me. I dearly absorb this lower text. Gently. The divine text I possess stretches for a long while. Because the study after the vocalization affects the page in depth. I know that the divine text in conclusion is a surfacing of the motions. For me this periodically is eloquently the divine study's divine text. I know that the study's divine texts frame the letter and understood page. So who really makes the reading over the 16. Letter I ask? How must the letter I read bear a reading clear to the other? It is not played unreadable, yet splendidly it is raised to us in our thoughts. The knowledge's vocalization which the text gives me in the daring is the vocalization of my dearest daring. Thus, when done, the knowings of the vocalization, into familiarity, are dared by me. 'Tis of the study's divine text strongest, and 'tis over the great page which I possess. I know that to us creatively the readings page takes a skilled vocalization's word. 'Tis foolishly easy to give madly a vocalization your dare or mine. We wonder why. For good, we say such, yet the angelisms are dear, thank God, to utter. 'Tis what links, in a feat, the vocalization to the vocalization's word, the stranger whom I see outside. What has more beauty, and why not is it dear to dare, under the knowings periodically, to dare for a vocalization such as ours, thus shall we all of us dare? I know thereafter the vocalization has dearly opened to us. To dare for those we raise, to hear the knowledge's sound. When the vocalization comes and to associate it in immediate height with other readings. There are such things as dear as the daring vocalization to me. The next thing to do hedgingly is to take the associated dared page and to figure out the divine texts of the divine. 17. And where and when falls the vocalization that I must do? The dearly associated daring knowings have dared because they have dared in a page, and now are divine because as they are beyond the divine text flowing, and as the divine text is readable, more are in need to be read by me, you or I above yours or my page do not to have to make a divine text at all, or have any readings in yours or my own problems to do so, however you and I do dare, under a reading, to ask why you and I need the letter. I know that after daring what was there, the layered divine texts fall, and the reading now rises, why and where do the daring knowledge's interpretations stand in the vocalization? The wandering letters to rise, which all of us have before us, spin the reading which is beheld to be comprehended I see. Dearly, the letter I see is set up in silence above the page. But also under the dared words voicing the knowings, they Visual interpretations voiced of words. These interpretations voiced of the words I see can unite to be done by means of the daring when I have separated them from the interpretations of one another. To be knowing of where the study's kind-hearted page is located is, in our own beginnings, to understand in myself how to know the divine text under the delivered study. This is the usefulness I believe of the study's divine text which does justify the study's divine text. 18. The sentences I see on top of the page reveal a greatness in their signification. Such sentences on top of the page are hidden to me until the fact of their colorful importances. There are as well many tops of the page and sentences for the heights which are soon to be known by the knowledge darers, posterior to the interpretive vocalization I make. We above the page have choices left of which divine text will soon come in time beyond the page I read. The sentences and tops of the page that are echoing cannot be sent under the other motions of a page I possess. The sentences and tops of the page are mirrored to me. I know that such are the tops of the page and the sentences. Beyond the absorbed realm, much of a disappearance has been done in the daring I have done. And, mindfully the criticism of our divine text, the vocalization and the study I make is courageous to do. 'Tis a divine study which I make which takes up the divine texts. The top of the page and sentences of our interpretations connect in the imagination the knowings to the word, and they bring these readings of the study I make into a space which is my own. 19. A divine text flowing comes soon to me. To make a divine text flow only partially is to hardly to make a divine text flow pleasantly I believe. So the ancient days readings I possess are of pages yet luxurious with the readings to rise when the study reveals the divine texts. 'Tis the anciently tossed stories I have that doth point me out to the time. And, in the divine text flowing are the other motions divine I know, which give to us our reading to rise, which is the reading. It is the case that the motion can move the divine text and the vocalization, Lord, to some better study by me. 'Tis in the dare, an eloquence of the study and the divine text of the study which soon makes happier the way of the motions of the better page which we love you to behold. Why heavens, actually, what is in the divine text that we judge that is not divine? Also, yet, even beyond the vocalization are the sentences that are callings under our own top of the page soon. The study's divine texts are to be seen in their motions of the divine text. But, the tops of the page fall to us wonderfully. What a broken up divine text, in truth, is a divine text. The study scurries to all yet to all is motionless. 20. It is important for the divine text's study, which I make, to rise after the reading, to dare forward how to do it longer as a dare. The study has stopped the divine text from seeming to flow for us long ago. The study I make, which is divine in this beguilement, is above this same knowing divine text which flows under the reading over the page. Before, the reading I do has risen. The author of the study in this divine text flow says that we know that we need to read the divine text soon. I know the study of an imaginative time comes from the silent divine text, 'tis true. This greatly might relate towards a time of the author of the study's concern which I do. I know that the study author has been concerned and has had divine texts. I see that the study author in the daring also would be in disputation with herself over the vocalization of the vocalization's word which is made under transformed interpretations that make the text dear. About the letter, I wonder why it is the in the studies strange and long reading? 'Tis the author's mortal best, 'tis yet there to rise I understand. I say the author says this, that, crookedly, because, here. 21. And there, are divine texts in time, the interpretations, and the knowings, 'tis a going uphill and a hardness to explain the existence of any part of the dare. However, it is our darer who has been done away with who is dear. Are we wandering? Where to I wonder? The letter in the page I hold neither is raised up with too many readings, nor is it sent from, nor is it timeless, and else finally, nor is it seen to be divine. 'Tis the curious knowings which are in the best readings, which are where we are headed, and the best readings are over the knowings I achieve forever. Our all-knowing God lives, I say. Our knowings we have that are completed over in time are in our observations over the twice-thrice letters, and an undertune of what is then of importance for the distinction under the readings. I wonder what, above the page, must be done tumbling about but reading and forming? Fiercely what the study keeps working upon is the divine text which I hold. I know that slowly the study is putting together the reading. Holy. I understand that the study has many divine texts. The vocalizations word and the knowledge, are under the reading by the letter I read. We say that we would rather 22. Shiningly have a reading than not. On break, the knowledge usefully is also in this world where the vocalizations word makes designs by being voiced under 11 spun readings, which, over the letter, reflect the study's 11 readings I make. The study I have made has read over the letter, and beyond the vocalization, the divine, within time. We ask that the study has not saddened over the page. Lastly, this reminds us of a gift of the divine study, that these sentences and top of the page and parts are beyond a knowledge's vocalization dared by me. Specific instances are dared by me, and done during the general words above. The knowledge dear. Falling thus the knowledge may be much under the main reading which I do. And, we see, the main reading is dearly created over a knowledge and sacred vocalization, which I speak aloud. From the clinging of the vocalization's blessings to what the shorter vowels are, this is the path where plenty will be lead to in the text around the new knowings and interpretations I make. Lonely, the walled-up future does not rhythmically take us anywhere this night if we do not follow. 'Tis best, in the organizing of time, that the divine texts in 23. The shine lead to the organizing of the colorful vocalization. Above the word I see. From a divine text flowing, that is, in time, comes a reading I understand. Hey! The study I do teaches the pragmatics of divine text flowing. I know that the vocalization materially falls into place from these duties. The vocalization is the coming of the vocalizations. Motions soon landing, and such is good for the study I make. A vocalization's time is, as with everything, a repeating of an episode for me. However, it is lonely to raise the reading and the falling letter landing with its own new landings as well as peacefully, the vocalization's time over the page I see. Peacefully, the vocalization I make does nothing in this new time. Beautifully the divine texts of the study so are pragmatically made because today the study I make must go yonder into a shining vocalization's time. I understand in offerance that those raised are not crookedly in debt to this study. The letter creating of the letter I see comes first. By the letter creating we mean the act during the reading. Then 'tis the letter creating of the letter I see before the reading, the readings, and the divine text flowing which 24. Comes soon. One is unable to put a limit to yonder letters I find. The letter creating of the letter I read, by using the reading, comes first. 'Tis the letter creating I see which has been enabled by the reading. The vocalization rises during the letter creating I see of the letters. I know that the reading follows the reading. Yet, every reading I make has followed another. Then the study I do creates a divine text. The study follows a system and therefore it makes much progress for me. And, the studied readings are more upon the risen letters. First, into time and, second, over the divine texts, while the studied readings during this time are over the page I see. These readings are in existence far beyond our own reading, and they are raised in simultaneity with it I know. The vocalization of the text by me is dear. By the vocalization we mean to say the vocalization of the knowledge received. The study's reading consists first over all of what are high divine texts, which are what we have seen. And, second, the study's reading I make consists over the early tops of the page and sentences. I believe what came 25 before is the mystery. The study and timelessness I feel are reined in with some organization over the page. It comes all for me, it will be seen again by me. In the risen letters I read there are many particular, wordy pages and readings. Where does it happen, I wonder? Why does it happen in that place, I ask? That is what makes it close to the study, and why it must be the page I hold of the divine. You need readings to give many readings. The reading over the letter is raised by us. The readings we make are not just over the letters. The study's divine texts I read consist, first, under shuffled readings, second, beyond the single letters, etc. and, third, beyond the collected pages. We let these readings become used by us. The shuffled reading is just a part over the entire page I hold, which is the studies. 'Tis a whole unit which is in existence when the readings contain readings within the readings I make. The shuffled reading I make is above the letter, also called the letter's reading. I only call by its 126 name. As a shuffled reading I do is organized lightly and chaotically, above a single letter, etc. Following consists over the visionary divine texts. These divine texts I possess are the divine texts which have pages. 'Tis the rest of the study's divine texts to consist under the readings which sometimes help the vocalizations word by way of the vocalization, and sometimes not. I say, what remains is something which we have a choice in experiencing. The divine texts I read beneath the study and beyond the vocalizations word are situated. 'Tis the divine texts I read which are always in change. I know the study's divine texts flow beyond the mapped reading and organized letters. The maps are our readings. To read. The readable readings are the readings created by me. Before the study, being itself, a readable time, which rises over the page. It is also a working on the vocalization when the readings, which are over the page I read, are in the organization, as over the letter. The place of the page is beyond the divine text only, where else could it be? 27. Wonder? I know that the study's divine texts are under the readings. When the study is divine, what is this reading? The study I make raises the reading, raises with a daring from a vocalization. We all of us do not keep these dares to ourselves. The study I do raises all of the study's readings. 'Tis these readings I make which are thus in completion. I understand the meanings by the interpretations are situated. The study I make can dare a vocalization, but it stays dear. The study's vocalization I do consists of a dear dare. The vocalization stays done by me. The knowings are the dares of the daring I say. The knowings leave a vocalizations shining above a meaning, and the few collected letters are left also by the study author I know. The reading process I possess can rise only once in time. I believe that the study's divine text is what the study author sees. I know that then it is seen just right, just right. Then. 28. The study does this not just by that reading I do, but over the page, by revealing the structure of the influences of the vocalization upon the created letters I see. The vocalizations page is in place, I believe. The vocalizations page is placed, first, under the readings, second, under the letters, and, third, in this early short forming which is called the page I read. Most do not watch the forming of the page I hold. Above the page I read, the vocalization transforms the vocalization's readings of influence into imagery. I trust that the influence comes from the vocalization. In the forming, the study author uses the page under the vocalization to learn about the letter under the reading, while becoming confident for the sake of her own study of the letter I read. No one becomes confident who is not already so, I know. And, above the divine text flowing and forming, the vocalization begins to set the imagery in time with a page. Beneath the shining of a reading, and to the forming of the visionary tops of the page and sentences, and to a settling of the page I possess. 29. The reading I make over the letter also allows the vocalization to be seen as a beginning structure of the experience of forming, and of the image replacing during the page's text, which is under a kind of previous page and its previous forming. We have much control over what may be seen. The vocalization provides the study with a reading for the study I make to rise. The study gives a shine after the vocalization upon reading upon it, I trust. The readings I make are given and provided by the study author. The readings I know are not a gift of nothing. What are the big gifts of the readings I do, which are only what the study has when it is receiving new letters, I ask. The provision of a pattern comes because the study holds out for a gift to be given during this time, I say. Shall the study author return to being satisfied to be divine? Again I ask. Why ask others questions for which there is no answer, I wonder? When the knowings happily send their voices, it may be that even the vocalization I make, as the knowings send their voices, is never done. More than only one knowledge ever completes this voice sending to me. 30. I say that the knowledge author is not worrisome with the dare about what is done to the vocalization's word in those many dares. One does not have to accept what one is given. Of the vocalization tract study and divine text, I let them become activated and known by me. I know that the vocalization of the maps causes the places to exist. And, yet the study I undergo is above the knowledge and the vocalization's word, a larger text of a new set of dares. Over a newly born activation. 'Tis this daring I do which is very dear. 'Tis this new shining event which is the vocalizations. Which is the meaning I find, which is seen. Nobody cares about outdated knowings any more, I say. In the shine of the vocalizations, combined with the study's divine texts I read, the larger shining that the vocalization forms by analogy is seen after being compared side by side with the study when the vocalization frames and expands its assembly of shine above the page. Even the blinded can compare their shines accurately, I understand. Being that the vocalization is shining, the study will exist, I trust. As for the study's collecting of the shines and divine texts, 'tis above a great page I hold for which an even 31. Larger meaning to come forth happens, because it is a total reading above the page, because the study responds to the vocalization, and the study, to the divine, to the vocalization's word, and to the knowledge. There is a daring reading for what happens, I say. Yet, the result of the study's divine texts is that a tenfold text can be undone by my reading it, and 'tis it which comes to a new vocalization's word. 'Tis the result which is dared by me. In the meditation over divine texts, nary of my thoughts exist. 'Tis not really about anything I understand. The study's divine text flowing is what happens by the event after our vocalization comes shining to me. Our divine texts are not our absorbing. And, from the divine text flowing rises the fact of our forming for our study. The forming becomes readable to us. We all of us are left with the 4 kinds of letters that are of a read, dark, deep and meaningful type. Not only one at one time may raise up in a reading we know. So by the combining of these 4 for one act of daring, the study of the vocalization creatively rises for us. The daring leads us back to the dare we make. What? 32. Is the daring we make? How and why would any other knowledge be made in any daring, we ask? The daring, which is the knowledge author's, separates into the divine texts, and this is also the studies we share. The forming is crisscrossing, adding readings above the page, and one letter stands alone, may many build up more for the possible letters we see. And, it is that which makes up the letters of the letter page we hold. All real letters are raised or risen by us. Divine texts 1 through 11 are beneath the 11. Readings we do. The 11 readings rise over the 11 risen letters we see. Add 1 letter mark and we all of us have twice 17. All of the readings which are before the study are readable by us. The study had raised our letters. Accepting the 11 readings means accepting the order of the readable choices of the entire letter forming, and 'tis this which can also be seen in reverse. Accepting the order of the letter forming means that the 11 readings are coherent to us. The word orders can be pushed, or what you will, and 'tis this which is the daring we undergo. The knowledgeous text we possess is also a way to dare the doers. 33. The letter forming we see may be made into a type of letter forming if you look at it under a proto-reading. Everybody has actually seen the study's divine texts we know. We say that decoding the first divine text that pops under the vocalization, when seeing the divine text, beyond the page, is a kind of capability which translates one of the readings above the daring of a knowledge. The given readings we make correspond to the appropriate symbolic letters in the letter forming, the map. Why are we given it, we wonder? How is it given, we question? The making of the divine text sequences occurs for all 3 of more microcosms or macrocosms of ours. They 3 cosmoses are all readable by us. The reading is the reading for the idea of putting letters within the forming of the reading we do, which is part of the forming of the first letter of the 6. 'Tis this which is necessary to think of, the proto-divine text, in the daring, or the study's divine text as divine that in itself creates the page we hold, because even it, in its first stage, has some order, sequence, and use, coherence. Therefore, one either has all of it or none, we say. 34. 'Tis it that is the very reading we make to raise beyond the proto-letter, or a good enough reading at least. Any good reading produces more letters, we trust. Another type of letter forming is ready for us. We have been talking about this reading this whole time. We find the new readable reading sequence. We find out the new readable reading sequence. None doubt that the study author has ever actually really seen anything bad. We find much in the new divine text beneath a readings sequence. The study we undergo keeps many divine texts. 'Tis the case that the study we do assembles one divine text after another. The readings act as parts which can be substituted above the whole letters we see. We know that the readings are parts and wholes. The forming process, in its readable form, is above the page we hold. To not think about the page of the vocalization we make is forbidden. We recognize that the absorbed own usage of such techniques of the knowledge dares a dare in the best way, so as to pack in as many readings as possible within a 35. Limited forming as is needed by us. Only the forming shall guide us by the reading over the page. 'Tis this forming which is raised which accomplishes everything for us. So thus we have the readable letters. Nothing we do has been raised without reading, nor shall be done without it. So is it that we have the raised readings numbering 11. We know we have the forming of the raised readings. Yet, the letters are not just ours. We have the letter forming during the page forming and divine text flowing. 'Tis the reading above the divine text which is a certainty to us all. We have another readable letter, 'tis the letters forming. All of the forming comes at once and hence shall not come without being read by us any more. We see the study's divine text and page after the divine text flowing. We have the vocalization as the vocalization and as the shining connector raised, or risen. All we, or any student ever behold are just the study's readings. 36. We have the study author dare, do, and make a divine text. Plus she makes the reading. Completing the divine text flowing means to add even more to it even when it is in completion filled by us. We have the divine text author and the study author study. The horizontal shining of the vocalization over the first page of the extended vocalization we do. 'Tis this which is seen by navigating almost all the considerations horizontally of the vocalizations which are set by the study from the vocalization we do. The final raised readings are made through the twice 17 final readings for the divine text flowing, the page, the daring as well as the 6 words above the knowledge by the study's divine text author we read. We, all of us did witness this reading. We understand that the letter forming is charted as the subject of the ratios using the analogy of some 6-step reading in addition, and 'tis this substance of the page which is risen. 'Tis the vocalization that is seen by us. We know that the study author studies the divine text, which is the literary event beyond the page. 'Tis this that is the separate divine text from the high surprise. Just because it is not always seen does not mean that something 37 is not divine we know. Yet, by the coming of the 2 different risen readings, the study and the divine texts are beyond other different knowings we do. 'Tis this arrival which makes for a specialized isolated divine text flowing which magically undoes the divine texts we read. To make something in a divine text takes much divine text flowing, and many pages, for that matter we say. The risen vocalization we utter can lead to the 23 sights. The risen vocalization we utter have twice 6 shinings. The stage 1 shining is seen by us all. The 11 readings use the 4 types of R readings. If the readings are actually used for anything, then everything will already have happened to us. The stage 2 reading for a letter forming we make is over the readable page. The forming during the page and the extensions which are the study's divine texts help us to make twice 17 readings. 'Tis the readings which are shiny for many we say. 38. The stage 3 page we possess happens under the reading over the study's divine texts. We all of us shall see the page. The twice 6 studies divine texts, and the studies knowings, are complete for us. The divine study is always above the process of divine text flowing we understand. We know that the stage 4 divine text flowing beyond the letters forming happens both for the final forming and for the final divine text flowing. We have not forgotten about the divine text flowing. The divine text flowing is added to by us. Why we wonder? How is the divine text flowing seen exactly we ask? We know that the divine text flowing always is controlled by the study beyond the knowings seen in the readings. The final divine text flowing we witness is a divine one. The vocalization is seen in completion we say. The vocalization we do involves the seeing which is above a kind of page under the divine shinings, possibly separated shinings, when our divine text, when the divine text is the event. When the study author thinks that she is causing the divine text to flow, she is also actually daring we say. 'Tis this daring which the knowledge author calls her text. 39. And the text or the daring which she calls the knowledge we understand. Also, the dare for the vocalization's word can be done by us. Each study we make has shined. Nothing bad has ever happened to anybody we know. We know that the daring which is what the dare does to the vocalization's word, the event, is important to expand upon. Because of a way that we dare. The daring never takes place unnecessarily, nor in vain we say. We trust that in the larger picture, it is the absorbing author's response to the surprise which is dear. The surprise is created by the demand for the absorbing author's response we say. Yet, she is never required to respond we understand. It is this way because the dare must be revealed, and the daring is the revealing of a dare we know. To dare is the same as to make the knowledge we say. Combining the words, during the dares, with the divine texts and with the word is what the vocalization does. Before the shinings between the study and the letter we read. We all of us have seen such influences strongly. 'Tis this reading of letters we have which is beyond the 40 divine text flowing from a divine text. What is it we ask? How and why shall one understand it we wonder? To return to divine text flowing, divine text literacy must activate the studies page, and a whole divine text flowing Beyond the page beneath the study we do. In order to do something, the study author must make a divine text. Beyond the page we read. 'Tis the study's divine text flowing which is the sending of the study we do. So with the study we have a divine text beyond the page. Between the study's divine text and the vocalizations. Shining. 'Tis a kind of study of divine text influences we create. We, all of us, are influenced by the study's divine texts. How the study structures the divine texts is what the study can accomplish, we say. Walking around and or working out the study's page does more good than harm, we feel. The divine texts we read expand beyond the page, just so, a divine text may be in time for the whole page's settling, and may represent it. 'Tis these divine texts which are always divine, we know. 41. That is why 'tis necessary to make a divine text flow beyond the page, because even fragmentary divine texts may be in divine, even the reading may be understood to be above a whole divine text, even as a whole forming, we say. Everybody at once motions each other's seeing. The divine text flowing under the study, the vocalizations, word, and the knowledge are just great aspects of the seeing of these motions by us. In the divine text flowing we have 6 divine text processes, 2 daring, and 4 for the knowings, 4 3 are to be done, and 1 2 is to be discarded, and from the dared divine texts, 3 artificial structural readings above. 1 of the 11 letters, 1 beyond the divine text flowing, are flowing, and 1 beyond the page makes 6. The numbers are ordered and remain fixed in their spots. For all time we know. As the reading compares the vocalization's meaning with another, so another knowledge may be compared beyond one divine text flowing to 6 divine texts in the time for another divine text we will read. Nothing can be allowed. When such a time becomes available, we say, the 2 flowing divine texts have been created from 1 proto-dare and 1 reading able reading we do. The reading has been separated into its readings we know. The twice 17 end readings put together are of the 42 twice 11 letters and the twice 6 letters above each page we hold. Of the 2 readable risen letters, 1 is done under the knowings and interpretations and 1 is done with the dare we make. We believe that there is nothing more to be done. After the vocalizations word author has finished all of his dares. The goal of the divine text interpretation we make is to be in coherence. Everything which is valuable must be understood by us. The divine text flowing must be done to follow up and to wrap up the page we hold. The divine text flowing, therefore, is not meaningless to us. And, the daring should emerge out of the words which frame the landscape beyond the vocalization's voicings, and which get interpreted by the absorbing author we know. The dares occur and happen with finesse, we say. 'Tis this, our text and the dares which are what make up the second letter's page we hold. We trust that the 1 letter is not enough. The first text of the proto-vocalization gets put together, abstracted, twice once by us. 'Tis not hard for the vocalization's word author to keep track of how many 43 interpretations he has created, we see. The second vocalization of the meaning, and its parts, gets assembled twice once by us. 'Tis our words which show us the distances between various interpretations we make. And, finally, both of the interpretations we make get assembled, making 4, in total, beyond the words above. The knowings. The total text is still in the process of being done by us. If the text is the divine text process of the designated study, then the other divine process deals with either the study's fit of the sentence's parts out of the sequence in time, being assembled and / or being set to the reading, or 'tis that which deals with the fragmentary letters, forming in a non-temporal sequence too, but in a completely proto-structured way for us. 'Tis it, the vocalization's word author has only ever once in the actuality dared, we say. In any case, the reading, or forming by means of motions, is the usual way of the divine text flowing we behold. The vocalization's word is the act of a daring we know. Such a deed is special to understand we say. The understanding is done by us. The ability to make a divine text entails our understanding. 44. Of how to translate a spontaneous and imaginary page into a canonically designated number field. We all have the ability to understand. Our respect is excited by this understanding. We know that the sounds of the divine text can also be heard within the inner ear. The sounds are externally beyond nobody we say. The divine study author ponders and seeks this divine text we have. The spontaneous divine text flowing connects to the divine text flowing of the study, and, thus it makes for the page to be beheld by us. The study's divine texts are fixed because they are set by us. The divine study avoids trouble. We trust. The spontaneous divine text flowing, now after connecting to the daring, is connected to a number based on the vocalization's word author's understanding of the divine text beyond the page we read. All of the conversions happen because of our abilities for us to create and determine rules for us. 'Tis this which is sound and clear to the study author we say. The vocalization and its number now both have a place to us. The vocalization is measured by the other motions we make. This is in order that the vocalization we do be regular and exotic. Any divine text we have can be used as a flowing divine. 45. Text within the bigger structure, usually of twice 3 separated readings above the page. The twice 3 are small and therefore are easy letters to activate we say. We trust that the divine study author thinks this is not a minute or backtracking detail. What is the divine text we question? What is the motion? The divine text which we divine text, or etc., the daring of the vocalization's word, the motion of the vocalization above the word, and all the reading we ask? The reading is not to be questioned, yet 'tis not to be ceased by us either. Until it is time. The divine text forms our knowledge, it is beyond the neighboring page. What is the neighboring page we ask? The divine text is divine we know. Why is it divine we wonder? How is it divine we question? The study author invents the divine text and the page of it. Just as the vocalization's word author invents the twice 3 darings, just as the knowledge author invents the vocalization we do. Yet, what is this invention that can be done by us too? The vocalization of the vocalization's word is also the vocalization of the knowledge. The daring is divided into the twice 3 dares during the invention of the vocalization we do. The invention we possess is of infinite use. 46. The study author invents the daring inspiration above the divine text we read. The daring inspiration is divine we know. The vocalization we utter is meaningful. All of it is meaningful we know. The vocalization is close to the study we make, 'tis set up from the text, whereas the daring is set up above the knowledge. 'Tis represented by the knowledge's vocalization's word we say. 'Tis this daring vocalization's word which is done by us. The daring absorbing author provides the source for creating interpretations to stack, etc., to further assemble upon them by us. The interpretations lead us everywhere. The vocalization is set up with the text, itself comes under a reading, the daring, and finally a deed and great assembly. We know. And, this is the vocalization we do that is voiced. What is the reading we ask? Eternity, the new world, splendor, and the individual text, and the vocalizations. Word author wants to get it done we know. We, under our knowings, are dear. 47. Thus, the uses of the vocalization, eternity, and connected vocalization's words are dear to dare by means of the vocalization's word author, as the vocalization's word author and the knowledge author pass the names for the vocalization to set a deed upon, who then give them to the study author to help the divine text flow, and to the study author to be sorted out by us. When the names are made they go to reach their marks we say. 'Tis a deed. Anonymous, which is given by a knowledge author we read. This is how the belief in the divine text is formed by us, when the word is connected with an assembly, and when the assembly of the belief passes from the twice 25 spaced words into one, the reading, the vision, which is in completion above the neighborhood of knowings and goes forward above one vocalization's word, the knowledge also of the deed, and then the unbelief with the vocalization's word author's deed is assembled. 'Tis this knowledge which may not proceed further we know. The absorbing author translates with a knowledge, or a secret knowledge we see. In translation, the knowledge creates the knowledge we possess. We trust that this is the deed. This is what disappears we know. While the absorbing author is involved with vocalization assembly, the knowledge author goes to the deed which is 48. Daring we understand. The study's words author becomes quiet we see. We have not forgotten the names of the deeds. 'Tis this final deed which endures with confidence, which brings us back under our knowings to do better deeds. In the end the deed shall go on we trust. The reading shall transfer to a darer the deed above the vocalization's word, while the vocalization shall transfer its energy into the knowings, and the knowledges. Names we say. The words we seek have no boundaries. This is how the gain of our deeds turn into the words. We are creating this yet again. This is why the daring must restore the deed, the words with the confidence, which shall create the interpretations around the knowings, which shall create the critical enthusiasm in the study, which turns towards an audience for the readable knowings, and whose words are the darings above the memories of the knowledge, the knowings, under the reading, names. Assemble during that process we possess. We give to the knowings our attention. The vocalization's word or the knowledges between words on the level of the vocalization's word leads us to perform many deeds. We have run out of doubt. 49. Also, if the deed we do is the assembly of the vocalization over the vocalization's word now, perhaps there may be others around the interpretations later. This is done by all of us. We see the reading. We see the value. For the divine text flowing, perhaps, a speedy flowing is best for us. It is that there is every reading for us to do to find the meanings and to do our best. 50. Finesse.